I remember when I first started playing this game in 2011, immediately after the free-to-play update, and I kinda brushed the game off. Sure, it was pretty good, but it just didn't hook me. It wouldn't be until a good friend of mine got me to play again that things really took off. I, like many, recall that during that time, many people began flooding in and discovering the wide range of playstyles afforded to the player by 9 distinct classes, each with specified roles that arguably don't even make sense anymore. Close range, flank, defensive, backline support, and a class that specialized in being anyone but himself. The Spy was an enigma, and an immediate draw for people like me, who aren't terribly great at multiplayer online games. Going invisible, sabotaging buildings, and insta-killing anyone I can get behind? What's not to love? Oh, well, maybe it's not all sunshine and rainbows. Yeah, the Spy is a bit of a hard class to play effectively. The constant need for espionage and pseudo-acting is just hard to pull off for most, and one of his biggest downfalls is invisibility only works when you're not wet, covered in actual human urine, or on fire. Hot damn, there are so many ways to be spotted. I mean, but by far the biggest here is being on fire. What if Spy had a weapon that allowed him to not be set on fire as easily? Maybe fool a pyro or two? Maybe tied into a Christmas update? Maybe tied into 2 Christmas updates with a slightly gaudy appearance? Oh wait, he does! The SpyCicle is that weapon, but how good could it be at its concept, really? Well, I'm Cody, and I'm here to ask one simple question, and hopefully get one simple answer. How bad could it be? Special thanks to Wyatt for the recommendation. The SpyCicle was introduced in the Australian Christmas update in 2011, and the update also featured the first map that I ever played on, Foundry. So, shout out to Foundry, I guess. Its stats present on the surface a tool that can help prevent pyros from snuffing you out as easily as they normally might. As of current, when you're ignited, you'll become fireproof for a whole second, and immune to afterburn for 10 seconds. Unfortunately, you'll lose the weapon for 15 seconds following that, and anyone you backstab turns to ice. Finally, the cooldown can be lessened by ammo pickups on the ground, but not from dispenser. Clearly, this weapon has utility in mind, deterring pyros away from you. This is pretty common knowledge, I assume. It's been around for 9 years, it has very few revisions since its release, and it's been talked about to death. There's a small detail that no item description could ever possibly tell you though. Is the pyro you're facing worth his playtime? Sure, many newer pyros may not know about the item and briefly check an enemy, only to see no flames and move on. But so many seasoned players are going to know this item exists. They will know that they can't just check it and move on. They have to check at least twice, maybe even thrice. Even if there is no afterburn, an extended amount of time in flames will tend to trigger that flight or fight response in you. While it's generally recommended to face your enemy with confidence, as running at the first sight of trouble can mean ensured death, whereas tanking a few hit points off can mean you fool at least someone. Pyro's flamethrower can deal insane amounts of damage, and it's just not worth it in far too many cases. The SpyCicle just isn't great at fooling pyros, and most of, if not all pyros, are gonna check everyone they see indiscriminately, and whether that's a good or bad thing is completely up to a subjective mind. But in failing to do that, it fails at its primary purpose. Sure, you may get lucky every now and again, but I'd say 8 out of 10 times you'll be facing a pyro who's more than a few dozen hours and knows what they're doing. This doesn't make the weapon useless. The Spy has far more tricks up his sleeve than a single weapon. He has cloaking, he has stabbing, he has a gun. Seriously, don't underestimate the gun. Surprisingly, it's also effective at killing the enemies. And if a good spy is utilizing his skill set properly, he doesn't need to fool the enemy, just evade them. You'd be surprised at how effective the SpyCicle can be at escaping when paired with an Inviswatch or a Dead Ringer. In my playtime, I was able to make escapes far more frequently than if I had just used a regular knife, thanks in many cases to losing the SpyCicle from fire. In my personal opinion, Valve hammered this point right on the head of the nail. Sure, you're not immune to all fire damage, but having 10 seconds of no afterburn at least gives you a fighting chance. So, maybe I was wrong on my initial inspection. Maybe it's an escape tool, not an actor's prop. On the surface, the SpyCicle fails in its concept, but in the grand scheme of things, maybe it does have a better use. Maybe that's why I still see so many spies use it, even though there are far too many alternatives that can provide much needed buffs to the spy. Honestly, given that it seems to be the weapon's primary directive, in hindsight, I don't have much bad to say about it, or much more good, if I'm honest. It seems in the past few years, Spy's been getting nothing but hate from Valve. Or I should say proper balancing that people call hate. That's right, this is a fucking response video now, get your fucking popcorn. Oh yeah, I'm gonna do another spy weapon because everybody loved it the last time I did it, right? Over 2 years ago, I covered the Ambassador right after a relatively infamous nerf during Jungle Inferno, where Valve basically capped its damage limit, giving it a damage drop-off, which they clearly stated there was a reason for. It was clear why they wanted it nerfed. I mean, an instant 102 damage, that is insane, because you could have done it from virtually any point on the map. That is an insane skill that Spy should not have. Many people just didn't agree with the stance that I took, and a few people took it way more personally, but hey, I can't help that. Sure, it wasn't a perfect solution, but the range could be nudged just a bit to give it that much more effectiveness. But so many of these comments that people left actually just confused me. A few people thought that it took practice, so it should be reverted just because you have to practice to get good with it. Really? You need to practice with a weapon in order to get good with it? Sure, it took me hours to get decent at utilizing the Rescue Ranger properly, yet when it got nerfed to require metal to repair buildings, I was able to take that as a necessary evil. So many other people weren't. It was a bit too much to be able to repair buildings at no cost. Why would I ever use the alternative that would use my metal if I could do it for free? I feel the logic is ass backwards, personally, but I guess I can see where some people are trying to come from. Here's someone that's saying Sniper can snipe, so Spy should too. This is comparing apples to oranges. These are different classes, people. Sniper is a very fragile class, and Spy arguably has a much better survivability rate. Imagine a sniper that can go invisible whenever they want, be able to get behind you unnoticed and snipe at you and pick you up from an area he has no business being able to get to unnoticed. This is what Spy was capable of at its core. Sure, he didn't do quite as much damage as a sniper, but 102 is a lot of damage, and I don't think many people understand that. Someone even claimed that he should be allowed the skill of sniping because other classes have subclasses, comparing them to Demo Knights and engineers, combat engineers, I mean. Even if I did agree that he needs a subclass, personally, I think he's one that doesn't. I think he's perfectly fine without one. I don't think it should be fucking Sniper. I mean, unless he's going to give up the backstab ability, which he's not. By the way, we're gonna get back to this guy later. The Diamond Back does 102 damage with its crits. Yeah, it does. But I wasn't talking about the Diamond Back. I don't get this one. This one was a common argument, not just on my video, but so many other places. Reddit, face punch forums, I think they were still a thing at the time. Or they still are a thing now. I don't get this one. Why does it seem like it's such a popular rebuttal? I never praised the Diamondback for doing the same thing, and I can't help that Valve didn't even think to touch it. It's just irrelevant to the entire topic. Finally, here's somebody who's just insulting me. The same guy who said Spy's subclass should be Sniper. Look, there's really no argument here. I mean, this guy and I had a back and forth where his only argument seemed to be boiling down and insulting me, telling me it was my fault if I got killed by a spy I never saw nor had any reason to. But that's the thing I think people need to understand. Yes, it took practice, but doesn't everything? This game is praised for its skill ceiling and its milestone way of learning. Nothing in the game comes super easy. Far too often, spies would take advantage of hiding and sniping. It was a meme. I remember when people said that the Ambi was basically just a sniper rifle with no scope. Where are those people now? What happened to them? I'm not saying Valve did a perfect job, but it was far too overpowered in concept, much less practice. This has been a long overdue response to the Ambassador. I hope you hated it.